And we are back here on the GSMC Football Podcast. And for the third part of the show, we're going to now talk about the Dallas Cowboys as they have named their next head coach to replace Mike McCarthy, and that is an internal hire. They have promoted Brian Schottenheimer to be their next head coach. And, I mean, this is not really surprising. And, from some of the stuff that I was reading and watching last night, not only was this a Jerry Jones move, but this was also a Dak Prescott move as well. Because Dak Prescott likes Brian Schottenheimer, so, and you have invested a lot in Dak Prescott, so you want to make sure that he's happy. So this was just another reason why Schottenheimer got the job as well, is, you want to make sure your quarterback is happy. So, how I feel about it, I mean, this is not a needle mover. There were guys out there that, I would have chose over Schottenheimer. But the problem is, it's not my call. It's not your call. It's Jerry Jones' call. Jerry Jones was not going to bring in a Pete Carroll. He's not going to do it. He wants to bring in someone that he has full control over. And Brian Schottenheimer is falls into that category. And it's funny because, talking to, my cousin who I was with yesterday, who was also a Cowboys fan, he said he'd rather have Jason Garrett. He wants Jason Garrett back. And when you hear that from someone that's a Cowboys fan, it's sad. But that's just how they're run right now. Jerry Jones runs the show. And he's going to continue to do that. And Cowboys fans all around are saying he's the problem. But he's not going anywhere. And, I mean, better off just keeping Mike McCarthy then. But they couldn't agree on the years for his contract. So that's ultimately what led to McCarthy leaving. Because all signs pointed to McCarthy staying. Because, they declined teams from interviewing him. So you thought, all right, well, he's going to stay. And then all of a sudden you hear, all right, the Cowboys and Mike McCarthy are parting ways. And you're like, what? But then you find out that it's because they couldn't settle on the amount of years for his next contract. And now there's only one job left, and it's the Saints. So he might not end up having a job at all. Now, I think if the Saints were smart, I think they would just give him the job because I think, he's the best candidate available. Everybody else is pretty much off the board. So I would just give it to Mike McCarthy. I know they've been interviewing Mike Kafka, the offensive coordinator for the Giants, and I know my friends who are Giant fans, want him to go there because they're sick of him. But I mean, yeah, this is just not a needle mover. Now, Schottenheimer, he didn't really call the plays while McCarthy was here in Dallas. And I'm saying here like I live there, but looking at his rankings and some of the stats when he was an offensive coordinator. So, spent some time with the Jets, the Rams, and the Seahawks. So from 2006 to 2011, he was with the Jets. His offense was not in the top 10 in terms of points per game. 2006 was 19.8, which was 18th. 2007 was 22.2, which was 25th. Actually, no. What am I saying? He is top 10. 2008, and that was with Brett Favre. When Brett Favre was doing well and then he got hurt. So, yeah, he was top 10. So they were 9th, 25.3. 2009 and 2010 and 2011 with Mark Sanchez, they were 17th in 2009. They averaged 21.8 points. They were 13th. They averaged 22.9. 2011, 23.6, which was 13th. Then with the Rams, it's not great. This was not great. 2012 with the Rams, 18.7 Rams average points per game. It was just 25th, and then he was 21st the next 2 years from 2013 to 2014. And then the Seahawks was in the top 10 all 3 years. 2018, 26.8, which was 6th in the NFL. 2019 was 25.3, which was 9th. And then 2020 was 8th. The Seahawks averaged 28.7. So, I mean, you could also, it's more than just him. I mean, you also got to look at, the personnel that were on those teams as well. I mean, 2018 to 2020 was prime Russell Wilson. So, but now, he's going to be with Dak Prescott, CeeDee Lamb. I mean, they got good players on this offense, but, it's not a needle mover. It's just not. And, you got a team in the Commanders now that just played in the NFC Championship game along with the Eagles. It's really just, you're better than the Giants. But, I don't know. The Cowboys, to me, they needed to make a huge splash. But it's not like I was expecting them to make a huge splash because they weren't. But they needed to do something different. And it wasn't going to happen. It just was never going to happen. So it's going to be more of the same. Next year, yeah, maybe they'll have a better year. Maybe they'll make the playoffs. But ultimately, it's going to be the same thing. It's either they miss out on the playoffs or you make the playoffs and you're one and done, or maybe you advance one game and you're done. And you got a quarterback that's coming off of an injury too. So they got some work to do as well, the Cowboys, this offseason. And I think they will be. I think they'll be better than they were this year. But, the division is going to be tougher because the Commanders are not going anywhere. And the Eagles, they're just getting started. Well, they haven't really gone anywhere either. But, they got young players on defense. You got Saquon Barkley now to deal with on the Eagles. That team's not going anywhere. They're going to be competing for championships as long as they keep this group together, which they should. Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm not a huge fan of it. I don't, maybe it works out, but it's not like this team is, hey, they're going to the Super Bowl now. Brian Schottenheimer. No. It's just it's going to be more of the same for the Cowboys. It really is. Like I said, they could go out and have a better year next year, but ultimately, it's going to be the same results. Whether it's you make the playoffs or you don't. And I don't know. That's really where I'm kind of at with this. Now, when we talk about a guy that Schottenheimer worked with in Seattle, and that was Pete Carroll, that's a hire I do like. This hire, I'm just like, it's a Cowboys hire. Even if they brought in Kellen Moore or, Jason Witten they brought in, again, none of those are needle movers. Kellen Moore has been here before. Just as a coordinator. Jason Witten, Hall of Fame tight end. As a coach, it's not a needle mover. But again, that's Jerry Jones. And he is the common denominator in all of this. I think this was like the third time that they've done this. They've hired from within, and the other time was Jason Garrett, of course. And there was another time, too. Jason Garrett only won 2 playoff games. So this is a little bit about Schottenheimer. So worked 14 seasons as an offensive coordinator. We talked a little bit about that, how his offense has fared over the years. Last 2 seasons in Dallas, joined the Cowboys in 2022 as a consultant. Third internal hire to be named head coach in Cowboys history. Schottenheimer's father, Marty, was a head coach for 4 different franchises. We kind of went over it already. 14 seasons. I thought there was something else I was going to add, but no, that's pretty much it. So, yeah, Cowboys got their new head coach. That's another hire. And like I said, the last one remaining is the Saints job. So who's going to take that? Like I said, I think for the Saints, just bring in McCarthy. He's got the most experience out of whoever else you maybe be considering. Unless maybe they want to bring in Cliff Kingsbury. I don't know. But I would sign Mike McCarthy. I would hire Mike McCarthy. That's what I would do. And it's not me saying, well, Mike McCarthy is just, spectacular coach. But I think it couldn't hurt you. I don't know. That's just me. But let me know what you guys think, though, about the Cowboys hire. How do you feel about it? Again, it's a Cowboys hire. That's really what it comes down to, in my opinion. So we are going to take our next break. When we come back, we will talk about a hire that I did like, and that is the Raiders hiring Pete Carroll. I know I talked about it a little bit on Friday when the news broke, but I wanted to get into it again today. So with that being said, stick around, and we'll be right back here on the GSMC Football Podcast.